there was a lot of fear involved. So I think that if you're gonna take a risk, you're gonna take chances to make a change, there will be some risk.
Well, hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I'm your host, Tosca DiMatteo, and boy, do we have a treat for you today. I am having a guest interview with Marina Ganzarolli, aka Ganza. And this is really a beautiful conversation that talks about both shifting your career and influencing change all in one, which is a beautiful kind of end note to the series that I just completed on influencing change. So before I get into it, let me just pause and say, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. I'm Tosca DiMatteo, and I do the work of transformation and helping folks to transform their careers and their trajectory. So if you want to learn more about the work I do, visit coachtosca.com. That's coach, TOSCA.com. All right. So I'm going to do a very brief intro. Marina is here with me today, and I'm going to let her do the introducing of herself because her experience and story is so vast. But I attended an event where Marina was on the panel discussion. It was called Gail's House, and it was based here in New York. And I just heard just a snippet of the journey that Marina has been on and the incredible work that she does in the world. Just as a glimpse, she is the founder of the Me Too movement in Brazil and has been on a whole journey personally and professionally. I'm just so honored to have her here to talk to us today about what it takes to go after your dreams and what it takes to influence change. And so I'm excited to see where this conversation will go. So with that, Marina, I'd love to just ask you to introduce yourself, to share kind of those critical steps along the way in your world that make you who you are and how you've come to be here.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think that now the main activity that drives my career is to be the CEO and founder of the Me Too Brazil movement, which became an NGO. And we support survivors to break the silence using national 24/7 free hotline of legal, psychological, and social assistance support to victims. And you also do a lot of advocacy work and work with legislation and public policies to enhance women's and girls' protection. I am currently also doing my PhD, trying to finish at the University of São Paulo in the same area where I did my master's, which is sociology of law and gender-based violence. I am currently a counsel at the Global Compact of the UN for the Brazil Network and Gender Equity. And I also am LinkedIn type voice for gender equity in Brazil, obviously. This is basically what I have been doing lately. I also run a consulting company that works with sexual misconduct and other discriminatory behaviors in company and in incidents that could lead to a ethics and compliance situation. So we work with the companies to avoid that kind of crisis and also to respond once they happened.
So basically, you do very light work in the world.
Yeah, it's very light.
A light worker doing heavy work. And what an apropos time to have this conversation with you as this country, the US, is on the cusp of making some very big decisions about the future, the next 4 years. So, thank you for all the beautiful work that you do. And I know that this was an evolution of your career and stepping into this work. So, and the audience that I speak to are folks who are often in transition. They don't know what's next, or there's fear around going after their dreams, or fear around, well, how am I going to monetize the work that I really want to do? I'd love to hear a bit about those major points in terms of what you pursued and why, and then how that kind of shifted over time to be in this amazing place that you are at, changing the world.
It wasn't easy, and there was a lot of fear involved as well, because I had a solid career and a solid job within a public entity. So it was basically that kind of job that if you don't want to drop it, you don't want to leave it, you never will, because it's a public office and they don't like a lot of changes. So it's the kind of job, it's the kind of work that you get in. And once you get in, it's very hard to get in. You don't need to leave if you want. And I had an amazing salary for my age at the time. I was basically at the beginning of my career. I had 3 full years of profession after college. I was doing really good in terms of what you should expect or people tell you to expect from a good job. So it was a solid position. It paid very well. It was something that was cool to do. It was nice to do because we were working within the accounting control of the city of São Paulo. So we'd go in really big contracts and look for any problems, any issues that would make that policy worse, or maybe that would indicate corruption or anything like that. But I was definitely not where I wanted to be, because I wanted to work with gender-based violence. I am a survivor of sexual violence, and I elaborated my trauma through helping other women. And I have been doing that for almost 20 years, 2 decades now. It's been 18 years of providing support to victims with no charge, as a volunteer work, as a civil work. And at that time, I was already a specialist, an expert on the subject. So I would be on the media constantly talking about the subject over an incident or a situation that was happening, and it was on the news, and they wanted an expert to comment on that. And that attracted the interest of many of my friends in what I was doing, and also the interest of other victims. So I came to a point where I would be talking to victims and helping survivors all day long through my phone, including in my working hours, which were not about supporting victims. So I realized that the time that I was actually doing something productive, I wanted to do more on helping victims. I wanted to work and make money out of it. But then, wow, how can you make money out of helping sexual violence survivors? It's a very tricky. You don't actually look to a volunteer work, to a social work, to a social impact work, and right away think of, oh my God, how am I going to convert that into something profitable, something I can live off? And I started my first NGO, the Feminist Network of Jurists, in 2016, and started teaching other women to help survivors, because that was a subject that we didn't have in college. So you kind of had to learn on the spot and through other studies as a master's or a PhD and so forth. So I started helping other women to do what I did. And that started to get bigger. And once I already wanted to get out, I didn't really know how. And a company, a pharmaceutical, called me to give a speech, to give a lecture on domestic violence against women, because it was Women's Month and they wanted to do an in-company training that had something to do with the month and with the date. And I looked at that email and said, well, this is cool. This is amazing. A pharmaceutical company wants me to talk about my social work. But that is not a association, that is not a school, that is not a college, that is not a union. That is a company, that is a pharmaceutical industry, and they make a lot of money. A lot of my medicine come from that company. So I cannot go there as a social impact work. I have to charge for that. I have to put a price on the knowledge I acquired doing something for so many years. And I didn't even know how to price it. They didn't know what to pay as well. So I kind of started building up this commercial propositions and the price of it and what would I deliver exactly. and how would I frame it. And I started doing paid lectures, paid speeches, and paid talks, and so far. And at a point, a cosmetic industry asked me to review the methodology of a workshop they would apply for judges. And then I said, well, okay, this is big. This is something that can actually help me make the transition, make that career transition. And I wrote a big proposition for them. They accepted, and I quit. And when I did, it took a lot of courage to do, because it was a very good salary. It was a very stable job. And I was going to the entrepreneurship, which is the world of unknown. So I had obviously a little savings. So I was planning to do that shift. So I was already living on under 50% that what I got. At that time, I had the possibility to do a big savings, to take that chance, to take that risk in order to be a little bit more calm and confident on the transition, that I would have the money for at least a year, spending very little to survive if I need it. And it took me 8 or 11 months for me to get my first cent out of this new career, because at that industry took 1 year and a half to pay me, because it was a big contract. So I only saw that money over 1 year and a half after I quit, after I fired myself. There was a lot of fear involved. Oh my God, this is not going to work. I would never get to that level of income again. And it took me about 3 years to get to that salary I had before. And now, within 8 years of company, almost a decade as well, I make more than I did at the time. Having my own company, my own NGO, waking up and going to the office when I want, when I need, and working from everywhere, traveling a lot with work, and having no trouble in keeping up with our activities and our tasks. And that's it. There was a lot of fear involved. So I think that if you're gonna take a risk, you're gonna take chances to make a change, there will be some risk. My mom and my dad at the time thought that my move was reckless and very dangerous, because they are public employees, and they were public employees their entire life in public office. So they knew that it was hard to get in, and really, really hard to get something better if you got out. And I did. So I think that there will be some risk involved. Not everybody's going to be happy with your decision. And you just have to move on. If you're doing something that you actually believe in, and you can see something on it. What I saw at the time was a perspective that nobody had. How are you going to make money out of gender, out of violence against women? And today, there are a number of consulting companies that work with sexual misconduct and in-company training and crisis management. And at the time, there were none. There were none competition, no concurrence. And now I'm doing something different. I'm not even doing that much training anymore, because there are so many other people doing it. So when I do it, I prefer to do fewer times, but with a higher ticket. And now I've been developing and investing more in products that don't depend on myself, on my image, on me being there in person, which are hotline for reports and reporting tickets, and developing that hotline pipeline. So how to make a better pipeline within your company for ethics and other situations that could generate a reputational issue or a problem. So that's a product that doesn't depend on Marina Ganzarolli being there, which is great, because I want at least work less get more money, and have more fun. So that's a little hard to do. We are working on that to be on my 50s, very comfortable and working very, very little.
Oh my gosh. First of all, for you that's listening right now, right? Like now you know why I invited Marina on this podcast. Because, first of all, how inspiring to be taking risks, to find your courage, to do what it is that you love, to not exactly know exactly how it was all going to work out. Like, I just want to pause because there was a lot of wisdom within what you just shared. I can't help but remember right when I first was in a room with you and you were telling your story around your upbringing and your meager beginnings and really struggling with the basic necessities, which gives so much more understanding to fear around financials. In my experience in working with folks, right, these fears, especially around security, around financials, are usually the barrier that prevents the next step from taking the risk. So I would love, if you are open to it, to hear a little bit about your journey, having come from struggle, real struggle growing up, to then making that choice for yourself to say, I'm willing to take this risk. I'm willing to not know how this is going to work out. And clearly there was a long gap in getting that first check as an entrepreneur. How did you work through that? Like, what did you do that could be of service to who's listening here in their journey of overcoming their fears as well?
Well, definitely having a network of support and working on my savings to do that move was very important. My wife at the time was, she's still my wife, but at the time she really helped me with emotional support and with the support I needed to believe and keep believing in my dream. As a child, I had a very difficult upbringing in terms of access economically. So I shared the same room, the very same bedroom, because it was a one bedroom house until I was 18 years old with my mom and my sister, my older sister. We lived in a street that had no pavement. Was a really a countryside area of the city. And as a child and as a teen, my goal, and there's a funny story about that. When I was about, I don't know, 7 years old or something like that, and someone came to me and asked what you want to do when you grow up. And I said, I want to be rich, because that's what I wanted to be. I didn't want to have the same struggles my mom had. And she would carry this huge and reinforced bag where she would be able to carry the milk boxes, because we were two kids, right? So there was a lot of milk drinking involved. And she would, after work, go to the supermarket, and it was a distant supermarket, so she would have to get a bus after work and drop in the supermarket and get another bus. And she would carry these heavy milk boxes on this bag. And we would call that bag the car, because it was kind of our car, the place where she would put the groceries. And she would never do a lot of groceries because it would be hard for her to carry. We didn't have at the time the possibility of delivering at our address. So she would carry groceries little by little every day, and also the milk. So we would call that the car. And it took a long time. I was already in college when she actually got her first car. Cars are very expensive in Brazil. It's a little different in the US. You can get a very low cost, cheap old car for a little bit of money. And in Brazil, cars are very, very expensive, even if it's an old car, it will be very, very expensive. So it took her a long time to have her first car. I was not even living there anymore. So when I went to law major, I had this idea that, law, usually people that goes to law school makes a lot of money. So I talk a lot, and I like rights, so I'm gonna go to law school because I think there will be opportunities for me to pursue that dream of having a financial and economic level where money would not be a issue, would not be a problem. I would not be on the agenda every day, you know? And I got to that situation really fast. I think I was so dedicated to that goal that in 3 years, I was already at the courts, at the municipality court, getting a very, very good salary. So I didn't even have that much of a spend to what I didn't even know what to do with that kind of money. So I really saved a lot. I stayed there almost 5 years. So I stayed there for a while, basically all the first half of my first decade of profession. And that made that move possible, right? So with my first salary, I gave my mom a frost-free fridge. She didn't have one at the time, and I thought that was absurd because she was already an elderly woman and she would be defrosting her freezer manually. And I was like, oh my God, that's awful. It was so expensive to have a frost-free fridge at the time. So that was the very first thing I bought her with my first big salary at the court, at the municipal court. For me, it was very important to have a place to live and a car. You know, I didn't need much. I didn't need to be living on a fancy place or have a fancy car. I just wanted to have a house and have a car. And when I got to that, and I already had a cool apartment, and putting cool things inside the apartment, I was done with the part of I want to be rich. The part of I want to be rich part was the part where I didn't pay a rent. I had a car and a salary would come every month. You know, that was being rich for me at the time. And it was exactly what I conquered very, very early in my career. And that gave me the tranquility to pursue other steps and other crazy dreams. Because that very, very basic dream of the children, of the child, Marina, which was not having money as a trouble, was conquered, So I had more tranquility to take risks because I had a car, I had an apartment, and I had some savings that would make me go through at least 1 year. It gave me the chills, and it was scary, super scary, but I had a little more of a base to take that chances.
I love what you shared because what I'm hearing you say is you were extremely driven to achieve what you wanted in terms of financial success, right? And you made choices because you were like, I want my life to look different. I want a car, right? I want to be rich. And you pursued something that interested you, worked out really well. And what I'm hearing is that you've honored that you did these amazing things and that has given you the confidence in your life to say, well, I did this. What else? Like, why can't I do it again? That's how I'm interpreting it. Is that, would you agree that was like the confidence building to enable you to take risk later on?
Absolutely, absolutely, because that source of fear of not having the economic sustainability that I didn't see my mom and my dad having when I was a child was overcome very fastly throughout my career. So that gave me the guts to do anything different, because that basic need was already secured. And how did I do that? Thinking in terms of opportunity, right? How did I get to that place? Through the university. So the public university was what opened all the doors for the opportunities that I went for, that I actually took on and tried it out. But all the doors, they were not all open, and sometimes there wasn't much after them, behind them. But all the doors that made the very first 5 years of my professional career possible were given to me through the public university. So a bunch of people went to the same university and did nothing of what I did, my wife, actually, we met at college, and she actually finished it and started another college, another career, and it's a movie photographer to today, and work with that and love that. But when we graduated, and she was, deciding that she would start everything again in a completely different career, and go through another university from scratch. We would look at her CV and mine, and we went to the same university, right? So we were doing the same college. And I had 3 pages of CV because I did so many things through my college years. It were 6 years that were packed. I went abroad for the first time with a scholarship. It was actually to the United States with a Department of State scholarship. I went to Tennessee. I went to Germany and spent 1 year in Germany studying law in Germany with money from the German government. Every door that existed on that university, I knocked and checked in,
Yeah.
to see if there was something for me there. So, and her CV was like, she went in and she did basketball and she got out. And it was the one page CV, and we went to the very same university.
Right. So, yeah. And what I'm hearing is that because you put effort in and continuous effort and persistent effort, right? That you open doors for yourself. You use the resources available to you. You were very driven. And also, there's this, I think, this idea that you're sharing, right? Which is when we prepare for what we want, there's possibilities. That's kind of a thread that I'm hearing. And I think the big piece of this too, which I think a lot of listeners forget, which is that we have had success in our past. We've done hard things. We've overcome things. And that is the truth of our lives. And when we're ready to make new choices, when we're ready to take leaps of faith, that this is a huge, I think, exercise that we can do, which is to say, what have I done? How have I overcome hard things? What did I do then? What was my vibe then? How did I get through? And I think your story is a testament to that. It's a testament to say, then why not something else? Or why not take on some harder journeys? Because I know what I'm capable of. And I don't know, I just think that that's a great reminder of what we can do for ourselves to say, but you've done the hard thing. Like I think about, and I've told folks this, right? Which is like, I finally committed, like I want to go after a TED Talk. But for a long time, I was telling myself a story about, oh, it's hard, and what I forgot is all the times that I went after hard things where there were a lot of, steps in the process, whether it was applying to MBA or whether it was getting into, top tier consumer packaged goods organizations and working there, that I forgot, like, oh, right. Yeah. I've done hard things and it was hard and it was totally worth it because it's what I wanted. And I'm just hearing that from you to say, don't forget where you've been and what you've been through as your evidence for what else is possible in your life.
Absolutely. It was so hard. It was one of the hardest things I ever done in my life was to get in that university. So once I was in, I valued every single bit of opportunity that I could take from there. I really went for it. I really experimented, right? Because you also don't know what's going to work, what you're going to like. It's a period of discoveries. I told myself, okay, so let's discover everything there is to be discovered. So I would get into programs, and I would have a very hard selection process. And I would stay 2 months and drop it because I didn't like it. Because that was exactly what I was doing at that time. I was experimenting. I was like, well, maybe I like business law. And I would go on a program for business law and I would hate it. I would, okay, well, I don't like business law. Let's try something else. I know I wouldn't make money. It's definitely not going to be with business law. So let's make something else. And I would go to a research trainee position, and I would work with data, and I would love that. And I would be on Excel tables the whole day working with data for jurisprudence And I liked that. So I decided to get a scholarship to do research. And I got a scholarship to do research. And when I got that scholarship, I discovered that there were a bunch of German people that studied that as well. I said, well, let's go to Germany because if I'm studying these German people, they're going to like me and they're going to give me some money to do that. And then I tried going to Germany with German government money, and I managed to get that. So it was a search and also taking in and dropping. You take and oh, it didn't work, drop it, try something else. And when I graduated, I obviously wanted to work very hard. I really wanted to work because I wanted to make money. And I worked so hard during the two very first years that this guy that I've never seen in my life and which I had no relationship before crossed with my work. And he had a problem that was not my problem, but I knew how to solve it. And I said, well, I can solve that problem for you. He was not my boss. My boss was someone else. And I was at this meeting and I saw his problem. I said, well, it's not my position to solve that for you, but I actually know how to do it. Would you allow me to do it? And he said, yeah, sure, absolutely. And I did. And he loved it. And he was like, okay, come work with me. And it was the same salary, right? My boss and this guy. And my boss was actually my professor. It was a professor I had at university. And when I graduated, he hired me. So I went and he hired me because he remembered me because he saw me at the airport during summer vacations and he remembered my existence. And he said, oh, you need to come to work with me. And I actually did. So I was working with this professor for like 1 year and a half. And I crossed this other guy that needed a problem solving, which I did for him. And it was not my job description, but I did. And this guy called me to work with him and said, I'm not going to change where I am. My professor who I trust to get the exact same salary with this guy I've never saw in my life. So I refused it. And a few months later, he was nominated for a position in this court, which is a court that is elected by the municipality, by the chamber of the municipality. And he got that position and he went there and he was doing his team to go there. And he called me again. But now it would be to actually be paid 5 times what I made at the time. And then I said, obviously, yes. And I went. And so this was the super good job I got. Absolutely from a random situation where an opportunity presented to me. And I didn't know that in a few months he would be nominated to that position. I think I was at the beginning of my career. So you're very willing to do the work. I would never do that again. If it was today, I would be running from work. I would not, just raising my hand and say, yeah, I'll do that. That's not my job. Just, because I want. I would never do that again. But at that time, I was eager to work and I was everything was a yes. And I was go, yes, I can do that. And that actually opened a lot of doors.
Right. I get that. Right. There's a phase in your life where you're saying yes and you're going after everything and you're just trying to open every door for yourself. But I also don't want to discount, right, that maybe there was an intuitive hit to do this thing, right? Because look at what happened as a result. And I think, it's funny because Marina, you share these incredible stories of magic, of hard work, of belief. And I want to slow down a little bit because what you're saying about experimenting is something I talk about all the time. And what I love about your story of saying, yeah, I experimented. And if it wasn't for me, I just left the thing. And part of that, right, is youth, I think, right, where we're just like, we're more open, right? We're not as jaded. I think part of it too, what I'm hearing is you weren't hard on yourself either. Like a thing didn't work out. And I don't hear that you beat yourself up over, oh, why did I waste 2 months trying that, that thing that I actually hated. I think you were very aware of, you were just trying to figure it out, and the trial and error was part of your process. It's part of your energetic makeup and how you move through the world. And I think there's a lot for us to learn from that, and to say, yeah, like, how do we take the pressure off of ourselves to say we have to make the best right decision? We can only make the best decision that we know of right now, and know that nothing is permanent. Like, there's very few things in this world that are actually permanent, that you know, that you can change your mind, that things can change, that you can say no, that you can pull back, whatever the thing is. And I think that's just like a beautiful lesson to take away and say, what if we put on this mindset, especially later stage careers where folks might be wondering what's next, is say, you know what, maybe you don't have to have the answer. Maybe you can just take that next thing that seems to interest you and follow it until you find out where it's meant to lead you. And maybe it's something else, maybe it's further down that path. And I think the other piece that I just want to highlight is, you know, I talk a lot about, we like to be in control of our future, right? Like, we don't like uncertainty, like, as humans. So we tend to fill in the blanks of what we don't know with assumptions about how we think things are going to go. Oh, I want a new job. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to be hard sweat equity. It's going to be, I got to apply to a million jobs a day, like all the things. Whereas if we just kind of go about our life, we don't know what's possible if we allow for the magic, if we allow for the unknowing, if we allow for not trying to take control of everything, but to just be who we are. And that's what I'm hearing, right? Where somebody saw you, you know, frequently, you just had this presence and this energy, and that led to an opportunity. And I think that we forget to let the magic and the space in our life, and to know that we don't have to have it all planned out, but we can let things unfold if we just also place our intention in what we want, whether what we want is more financial stability, or what we want is a really fulfilling career, or what we want is to make new friends, or what have you. So anyway, that's what I'm pulling from that. I don't know if that resonates for you, but it just seemed like you've got so many nuggets that I just had to stop and be like, okay, wait, are you picking up what Marina's putting down?
I agree. I totally agree, Tosca, because you never know if that thing's gonna work or not. But you also won't know if you don't try it. It is absolutely fine if you discover it doesn't. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so just, I think that youth brings that dynamic to our careers, but we don't have to lose that with youth. Actually, like within my company now, when I try a new product and I start developing a new product, it has to do a lot with how this is presenting itself for me through my clients. I kind of realize what's not being done yet, and it's a need. Work on the development of that. I think that I always try to do something that is not being done yet by my competition, but it has been done somewhere else. I'm not inventing the wheel. I'm never inventing the wheel. I'm always looking for initiatives that are similar to what I want to do in a different city, in a different country.
Yeah.
Oh, this works very well, and we don't have that. Well, let's try on and do that around here, because there is nothing like that in here. So I would always look, because we're saying, oh, this is the unknown, and it's a risk, and you're taking chances to a certain point. Yes, but someone already did that and took that chances somewhere else, and it worked. So I'm gonna look for that. So the workshop I decided to work with, and it was the incentive for me to actually quit from the court. It was a seminar that was provided by a company, an American-based company that didn't operate in Brazil, and so they were paying this company the royalties for the content, and they needed a Brazilian to adaptate the content to the Portuguese language and the Brazilian culture. So I looked to that content and I said, well, there is nothing similar in Brazil. So once these guys paid that royalty and start giving this workshop in Brazil, who is going to give it? Because there is no one doing that. Are they going to bring these Americans every time they want to apply it? That doesn't seem reasonable in terms of costs. You're going to need translation. You are going to need to actually bring them from the US here for a week or a couple of days. That's not cost effective. So if I'm going to learn how to do this and your guys are paying the royalties for it, why can I be the person that gives it every time? So I was not doing something that was totally unknown to the market, but it was unknown to my market, to the Brazilian market.
Yeah, and I love that you share that, right? Because I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves, right? That they have to create something new, and it has to be this whole novel thing. And that when we just keep our eyes open and we see what's out there and where we can fill in the gaps and find connections in different arenas, maybe it's different geographies or even different disciplines, that we can put things together in new ways without right having to recreate the wheel. But I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, or I think people hold themselves back when they think that what they have to say isn't unique. And I'm always saying like that it's really not about that. It's about the way that you carry the message, the way that you share your story is valid and will reach certain people that others cannot reach simply by the fact of being you. And I think the other piece that I love about when you're sharing about even the evolution of your own business is that it will evolve, right? That as you see more competition coming, and I think about especially in the DEI space and how that has just so much evolved in the past 10 years alone, but that we get to keep evolving and we get to keep saying, well, what else am I good at? And where is my heart now? And how do I differentiate? Just as more ways to see how doors can open and how you can shift, whether you're running your own business, whether you're inside another organization and you're looking for innovation, that just so much of, I think, what you share today is around keeping an openness, keeping eyes open as well for what else is possible seeing the opportunity and say, yeah, why not me? Why not me give the thing? I just being mindful of time before we wrap, I just wanted to shift really quickly into just acknowledging, I don't know, the bulk of how I see what you do is about influencing change. It's about influencing people to think differently, to see differently, to acknowledge the truths in the world that are hard to see. I'm curious what you consider your superpower or superpowers to be in that arena of influencing change. Like, what's your special sauce in what you do in such massive change that you're pursuing for the world?
I think my special sauce is the ability to listen and to make people open themselves. I don't know really how, but apparently I inspire a lot of trust because people really share very traumatic, very personal, very sad, profound things about their lives with us. And those are things that are hard to share with someone you do know. How do you share something that's so painful and so serious with someone you don't even know? So I have this ability, this skill. Sometimes I'm not even talking about what I do, and the person don't even know that I am the president of Me Too Brazil. And she starts sharing something profoundly traumatic with me. And I'm like, how does this person know that I actually, work with that? And it's really crazy. I definitely have the special sauce, which is the ability of making other people around me open themselves about themselves and about their fears. And I think helping other people with their fears and with their worries help me overcome my fear and my worries. This ability to see a something which is, it doesn't matter if it's a painful thing or a good thing, but something in the other that resonates like really with you, and using that to make connection and to build bridges. So I would never be where I am if wasn't for my obviously pursuit of trying new things, but also if there weren't specific people that crossed my path at some point and didn't look like anything would come from there, but they were treated and they were listened by me as they were very important, and I even didn't know. I didn't even know them. And one person in the airport, a person in a meeting that was not even supposed to be, and I treated these people the same way I would, I treated someone that I would know that would give me something positive back. And they gave, without me knowing it, that would be them, or that was the opportunity that would shift everything. And without me knowing it, that those people would be the important ones they were. So actually treating everyone that crossed my path with fairness and with equity, I guess that took me to places I wouldn't know that I would be, because I didn't see that person as the key holder of that opportunity. I just saw that person as any other person. So I think that was the special sauce through the years that I developed and I acquired, and it ended up being a really important skill in the career.
Oh, I'm hearing a few different elements of how listening influences. What I'm hearing is being an incredible listener and being able to hold space for other people has both had an impact on you personally and helping you see yourself, also influencing the person telling the story and what shifts for them as a result of sharing their story, and then also what that interaction creates in terms of opportunities that you weren't even looking for or knowing of, and therefore impacting change for yourself or even other entities, people, or organizations. It just seems like there was a few different legs to like how listening impacts influencing change. Was I hearing that in the way that kind of you intended?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly it. So it brought different layers on my career. Being able to actually listen, and more than listening, making people open themselves, like really open. Making them feel comfortable to share something super personal with you, even they don't know you very well.
And you know what? I could not imagine a better note to close on than this, because when this episode launches, look, we don't know who is going to be elected. And regardless of what the next 4 years will look like in this particular country, which obviously has ramifications across the world, that this idea of if we can just listen, if we can help people feel seen and heard and held, that this is such a core tenet of how we influence change. And so no matter who's running this country or whatever, that we have the power to influence just by opening ourselves to hear and listen to other people. And I just thank you so much for that beautiful sentiment, because I think it can be real simple. We can look at life a little bit simpler with that in the forefront of our mind. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Tosca, and thank you to all listeners. I would like to leave my Instagram profile, although it's major written in Portuguese, but I'll leave it anyway.
Yeah, I have your social medias, and I know it might be hard to follow because most of them are in Portuguese, but that information will be in the show notes. And is there anything else that you just feel like, gosh, you're just itching to say that we didn't cover before we close?
Well, just thank you again for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here. And if you're out there thinking on how to shift your career, I would start by looking around at what drives you and what you think is a very good initiative, and try on to make the same thing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do in the world. I hope this is not the last time you and I are across a proverbial desk. But I just think you're so inspiring, and I'm just blessed to have been in this space with you. And yeah, look forward to all that's to come because you still got a long way to go in in hitting your 50 like retirement stage. So I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much, Tosca. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye. Take care. Thank you. Bye bye.
Wow. What an incredible conversation with Marina. I think I tried to, during the interview, bring out so much of the wisdom that she shared in her journey. But I just want to take a minute to share some of the highlights as we close out this amazing interview. First, of course, is the reminder of when we are afraid of taking the next steps, to remember who we are and to remember what we've already accomplished in our life, to really look back and say, when have I taken risks? When did I do something I didn't know how it was going to turn out? When did I make something happen that I didn't think was actually going to work out? And we can use this as fuel for our confidence to do things now differently, to take risks now, even when we may have more at stake. Conversation reminded me to put on an experimentation mindset, to not be hard on ourselves when we are just testing things out, when we're trying to figure out what's next, what we enjoy, what we like to do, and what lights us up. And this certainly is in parallel to how I've built this business over the past 5 or 6 years, that I'm continually looking at what's lighting me up in the work that I'm doing. And I get to shift that and I get to change that. And so do you. One of the things I'm not sure I pulled out so much, but this idea of experimentation is also possible within our existing situation. So it's not necessarily that we have to leave our current situation to then experiment, but we can be right where we are and do the experimentation there, whether that's experimenting with how we're showing up with deeper listening skills. Maybe it's showing up and vying for certain projects that light us up that we want to be involved with. Maybe it's even shifting departments within our organization because our passions have changed or we want to pursue some other interests. But that we can experiment from where we are. And we don't have to necessarily leave, or whether it's a side hustle like Marina did and pursued things on the side of her corporate job to honor that she had a passion in different areas. These are just some of the main things that I'm taking away just in these moments of digestion. And of course, this idea of listening, that we can change the world, we can change our lives, and we can make a huge impact on others through the simple task, the simple efforting of fully listening to another human being, to hearing their story, to asking them deeper questions and helping them feel seen. That can change everything. Woo! I think this is one that I'll have to listen to a few times and pull out other themes that Marina offered. But I hope that you enjoyed this and found inspiration in hearing somebody else's journey from trials to triumphs. Clearly, Marina is an inspiration in changing her life, of feeling empowered and knowing that she could do it. She just had to be willing to do the work. Well, I don't know where we're going to be in this country by the time this lands, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter who was elected because we have the power to influence change. And we're just going to keep on doing that regardless. So I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. I hope that you are celebrating the future that we get to create together. And I will see you next time on the Unlock Lab. Ciao for now.